you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
I'm Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, when the Iron Lady sings it, that makes it official. Welcome to the show. We certainly appreciate you guys always supporting us for over 16 years and 2,100 episodes. We bring you the Chris Voss Show, and it just keeps getting better and more. There's more. There's always more. Today we have a young lady on the show. We're going to be talking about her newest book that's out called Carbon Is Not a Dirty Word. A guide to, my mom used to call me that all the time though. A guide to, when she get angry, a guide to carbon markets, governance, and nature-based solutions by Samantha Jewel. She joins us on the show with us today, and we're talking about her insights, what we can learn from her, and what's going on in the world, and all that good stuff. Samantha Jewel is a soil carbon expert of some 27 years, giving her the title an OG in the carbon space, whose insights bridge the gap between sustainable agricultural and impactful environmental practices. With a wealth of experience as CEO of URTH.io, her company specializes in carbon aggregation and the pivotal role farmer credits play in the ESG landscape. Welcome to the show. How are you, Samantha?
I am great. I'm very excited to be on this show with you, Chris.
Well, we're excited to have you. We're so excited I just interrupted you. So give us a .com. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Look, I'm on a number of places. As an author, I've got my own website, samjewel.com, Jewel, and I've actually got the books, and I've got children's books as well on the same topic in 7 languages for 5-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and 13 plus. So different age groups, different things, all based on the sort of Alice in Wonderland story of Down the Rabbit Hole, and very appropriate for the soil and soil microbes. So I've been talking about that since 2006, but this is really a business book. So this book's been a brand new book, and I've got it on both my personal website and on my company website, which is Earth, which you've been saying. Here, I've got on my thing. And the reason it's .io, because it's blockchain based. And I am very excited about this book. I actually was asked to do it by my business partner in the Middle East, whose people just don't know this stuff at all. And because I'm in Australia, we're kind of the world leaders in soil carbon. So you tend to find you're talking in an echo chamber. So it's very exciting to get out and talk into different communities who know nothing about this, the massive relationship between the microbiome in the soil and how we've evolved as humans for everything in our body and our body health, which, given that the new Trump election has just occurred, make America healthy again. This should be a very topical piece of discussion.
Yeah, we need it if you've seen the way we eat. You're from Australia, right?
I'm from Australia, but I have family in America, and I have been many times. I've even gone to school in Topeka, Kansas, but I do struggle to eat everywhere. It's just, I'm amazed what's food. It's a lot of food.
Like I went to Del Taco the other day, and I normally just order a medium drink because that's about all the Coke I really want to be drinking. And I always forget how huge it is. And they'll hand it to me, and I'm like, is this a large? They're like, no, that's medium. I'm like, I don't want to know what large. And I think I've fucked up, and I've ordered large sometimes because maybe I'm really hungry. And they hand me their large thing, and it's like a bucket. It's like a 5-gallon
It's
bucket.
actually... As an Australian, and I'm really a fairly English sort of descent, and everything's kind of polite and modest, and that's my cultural background. I actually find it really gross. It's this is the fence going on my plate here. So it's really a cultural shock, I think, to come into American food systems and the way it's just common to eat over there. It is really difficult.
That's really funny. So give us a 30,000 overview of what's inside your book. I always thought carbon was that stuff that makes your fingers black from the Xerox copier. What is carbon, and tell us all about it?
Well, carbon's everywhere. It's actually everywhere. You're right. It is that black stuff. But it's also, if you are actually taking carbon out of the atmosphere by a plant, that's what a plant does. We're all made of carbon, so are plants. But carbon actually forms the infrastructure in the soil that makes it possible for it to absorb water. It actually is the recognition between the plant doing photosynthesis, which everyone learns at school, and you all learn we breathe out carbon dioxide, and the plant, we don't probably know what it does, but we know it breathes out oxygen. So we know that plants are important, but we don't that's about as far as most people understand. But actually the plant takes that carbon dioxide, splits the carbon, uses it to make itself and the black stuff in the soil. So when you see a soil that's a red soil, like this red soil, I've got examples in my, I don't know how to put that with this thing. I've got examples in my, case studies that I've gone through where I've actually done studies on, I've got photographs, and one plant is just covered in red dirt still in the roots, and the other plant, when you start actually treating it the right way, it immediately goes black. And that black around the roots is carbon being taken out of the atmosphere. That is the plant doing what it should be doing. And what we've done globally is destroy this relationship between the fungi in the soil that are part of this sequestration model, a particular fungi called mycorrhizal, which is a big word, but that is the fungi that wraps itself around the roots and extends the capacity of the plant often kilometers out with this fine sticky network which goes everywhere, and it exchanges the photosynthetic sugars from the plant. Photosynthesis, it makes these carbon sugars and it exchanges them with the plant for minerals, because the microbes in the soil, when it's healthy, actually break down the rocks and turn them into liquid. They break down rocks, turn them into liquid. What a concept, right? And that exchange between the plant and the soil through the microbes and the fungi is, you can see it in the soil. It goes black as a record. I call it the gold in the soil, the black gold of the soil. And it's also makes these like cathedrals in the soil that enable the microbes and the water to get in. So you can have a hard pan on one side of the road from conventional agriculture that's destroyed the soil, this interaction, because of chemicals, fungicides, herbicides, pesticides, all these different things that are being used to pump the food out of the ground to get a crop, and without the minerals, which is why you've got all these diseases. So the critical thing in my story really is that this soil carbon thing that I go on about, and why the carbon market is so critical to maintain. I know that Trump's saying climate is a problem, but the real reason I've been on this bandwagon is human health, mental health, children's health, developmental health, disease prevention. Like really the pandemic, if everyone was healthy, they probably wouldn't have even got sick. Like you're a little bit of sick and they would have gotten over it, because the body would have all the microbial tools that are in the soil that we evolved with would be in our gut and in the story, in this whole discussion. So these up here, these are like experts, and I've got a lot more of them from all over the world that have given me testimonials on what I've written in the book, because I've tried to make it a really simple guidebook so that whether you're a farmer who doesn't know even that you've got carbon in your soil or you don't, or you're a sophisticated banker and trader in New York, you've got to know, well, how do I find those carbon credits that I can change that are from all this story that I talk about? And the farmer's got to go, how do I make that stuff? That's really hard, and that's another revenue stream for them. But that is difficult. All that part is difficult for both parties. So I'm the bridge in the middle. I'm trying to give this relationship for both. So I recently had a probably the most heart-moving thing for me. I gave this book to a farmer all his life, and he was on an airplane with me, and I gave it to him. He said, I haven't read a book. In 30 years, I haven't read a book. He said, you'll never get me to read this book. And I said, give it a go. anyway, he rang me and he said, he rang me twice, once to tell me he was halfway through the book and couldn't believe he'd read this much. And another one when he finished the book to say, I have to thank you because I didn't think I could learn anything more about the land. Been his whole life in the sugarcane industry, and he was about to go and give it to the head of the Sugarcane Association of Australia, which is one of the most closed communities, like these big commodity, like the corn industry in America, I'd imagine. Yeah. And he was really, that moved me. I was like brought to tears, but for a farmer to say that they changed from reading my book and understanding how this works, how simple this is, and yet how critical it is to our survival atmospherically, because it's the bit that takes carbon out of the atmosphere, human health-wise, like these critical points that we don't get, how all our weather, all our health issues, just so many things are all tied into the soil. So I do bang on. I am a bit intense about it, but it's, I just think it's such an excitingly simple thing. People can do something themselves and it makes a difference.
Yeah. So is there a way to make money at this? If I'm sitting around right now and I'm like, hey, I want to make
there's a way to make money.
Is this the same sort of thing that I think Tesla and Elon Musk was doing? They were doing something with credits. I don't know if it was electric car or clean air credits. They were doing something. So
the problem with soil carbon credits is it's been a really hard slog to get the adoption of the understanding because this science is so much more complex. Oh. Most people do carbon credit training in the energy space because it's pretty easy. You look on your bill, it's already worked out for you. I turn the lights off and I've got, I haven't emitted as much carbon. I get what I call a carbon mitigation credit. You're actually not emitting as much carbon and you can get a carbon credit for not emitting carbon particularly in industry. That's what all the tree credits are about. They're about, I won't cut the trees down, so we'll pay you money to not cut the trees down, and that's like mitigating the carbon.
What? I'm going to threaten to cut all my trees down. So
it's not really a personal thing. It's more on like the rainforest of the Amazon and someone making money out of the wood. It's really big business. So there's been a lot of corruption in the space.
Amazon, folks.
But it will be, and that's kind of what I've been trying to do, is be able to make it possible for the individual to be part of this, like you would be trading in the crypto space, to be trading carbon credits. It's just not quite there yet. We've been really struggling to get that major first sale across the yard. There have been in certain markets, but they're already sold because business needs them so much. They're often sold before they're even measured. Like in Australia, we're the first to develop a carbon credit called the Australian Carbon Credit Unit. But now there's a lot of different carbon credits. I think America does Vera, but there's been a slowing down. You can go on different carbon markets and trade them.
Wait, there's carbon markets too?
Yes, there's lots of carbon markets. So
this is like Bitcoin. I remember Bitcoin first came out, and I was like, "What is cryptocurrency coin?" And now there's 50 trillion different coins, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like carbon is just. There's a whole market.
I think it's a little bit different because people are really concerned about corrupting this space because it's nature, and nature is very, like we need nature to survive. Mm-hmm. And so there's lots of activists. People don't really care about Bitcoin, whether it's real or it's not, or the crypto. They just think, that's all the crypto bros. But when you start talking nature and carbon, even though it's a similar market situation, there is a lot more validation. So we measure carbon a meter into the ground with soil cores, like drilling for something. We drill a meter, it's over a bit over a yard in depth, and we send them off to a laboratory, and we measure how much carbon, what's called stable carbon, is in there. So it's a really, really different process than satellites with trees. It's a lot more expensive, and it's very slow growing carbon. You realize you generally only have one rainy season a year in most parts of the world. 4 seasons, etc. So you're generally only having that growth spurt by a plant where it's taking the atmospheric carbon out and putting it into the ground, and what are you growing and how far deep is it taking it? So it's a bit more complex. But that's why I'm trying to make the book really simple. It should take a person from zero to a fairly sophisticated understanding in it. What I'm told is about a 4-hour read.
Wow. There's a million ways to make money in this world, I guess. I need to get on all of them, evidently, because you never can have enough. That's for damn sure. So how did you get into this business? Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, what got you interested in these fields.
Yes. It's an interesting story. My family created the first restaurant chain in America in Australia in 1965. Mm-hmm. And I was a baby, and my father came from the Midwest, Kansas, in Goodland, Kansas. His family is still farming there, the first generation, and they're the first generation to discover no-till farming, which is the not turning of the soil, because of the Dust Bowl of the 1930s. So in 97, because his family had lived through it, and I don't know if you remember, there was a thing called mad cow disease, which broke out in England, and they had to kill all the cows because they were feeding a cow meat for protein, which is, I just went, what?
The brains and everything was carnivore or carno.
Why would you give a herbivore meat? It was just like, this is an insanity. And because we were feeding for 50,000 customers a week, I went, oh my God, what are we doing? I'm pregnant. I better look into what's going into our food, because I knew nothing. I was not from a farming background. I was a sculptor and an artist off in dreamland, but also running restaurants with, it's a whole other world. So I started looking at it and discovered GMOs and what they were doing and the introduction of glyphosate. And so I got into all this that early. And so I still don't say I grow anything, but I've become very deep in the research because I was funded by my family's business to go to all the international conferences around the world. So I got really first-hand information by scientists that I found were really talking in a silo. They were talking to each other, which is why I decided to write the books, because I felt this information needs to get out to people.
There's a lot of big corporations.
That's why I got to talk.
There's a lot of big corporations that trade this stuff, right?
Carbon, yes.
Yeah. They trade the stuff and they do all the dealio with all of it. And
the majority of carbon traded right now is still energy. It's still wind, solar, mitigation, pyrolysis, biochar. There's a lot of that, what I call not putting carbon in the atmosphere or mitigation carbon, but I'm actually into drawdown carbon. I'm actually taking the carbon out of the atmosphere and putting it in the ground at depth. So it's quite a different protocol, because I'm trying to actually fix the problem, whereas most carbon credits are about trying to slow the process down. Like everyone's trying to say, stop fossil fuels. And I'm saying a big thing you need to understand is if we all went regenerative, actually regenerated the earth at depth, which America has tremendous capacity for because it's got the pathways deep in the soil anyway. But if we really actually did that, we could double the amount of carbon emissions. Because we could absorb 70 gigatons per annum through our agricultural practices. Imagine that, double the amount of carbon. And we currently emit 40 gigatons. So I'm not suggesting we do double our emissions, but I'm just saying it needs to be considered that this is how important soil carbon is. It's more critical than everything else because it also ties into human health. And we've got a lot of issues happening around the planet. We've got 50% fertility drop globally. 50%. That's like male babies already born sterile. So we've got, because the gonads are not developing in vitro. So we've got huge problems. And a lot of this, everyone talks about the microbiome, but how do you fix the microbiome? The microbiome is actually from the soil, and we've evolved with the soil. So if the soil doesn't have it, we don't have it. Doesn't matter how you're growing. You could be growing organically, but if it doesn't have the nutrients in the exchange between the atmosphere and the soil, it's not just about no chemicals. It's about what are you doing? Is there an integration of animals in the system? Are you moving them across? Are you letting the planet, do its thing? It's kind of extraordinary. The more you study it, the more fascinating it is.
Definitely. It's pretty interesting how this whole thing is going to work. So give us as we go out, tell us how people, does it require a certain amount of money? Is there a minimal net worth you have to play, or how does that work?
In the carbon market?
Yeah.
Look, I would say at this point, it's really only a business B2B kind of thing. even in the agricultural space, you're not going to bother going to all the auditing costs and stuff without a minimum of, say, 100 hectares. So which most people are just small farms.
Yeah.
But, it's really for ranchers with big open pastures doing movement of animals. And there's some extraordinary farmers. America, Australia, we have a lot of case studies. Just to give you an example, the viability and fertility of the animals being born and surviving birth and having, for sheep, let's say twins, that's based on soil health.
Wow.
I hope. Is it getting late for you over there?
No. It is about 5 o'clock on the day, but my apologies. I was hiding
That's
that
all right.
behind. I was trying to hide that behind the mic.
That's all right. It's probably a big subject that you may or may not be interested in. I know a lot of people are not interested in.
Oh,
I'm always fascinated, but
Yeah.
it's a subject that is always fascinated me, and I hope that some people in your audience are infused with the enthusiasm that I have for the subject to have a little bit of a research on it, because it is really, it's going to be very big in the carbon market, will filter down. There are countries in Europe that are already trading it. You can buy a coffee with a carbon credit in Europe, but you know how it is with rules and regulations. It's so onerous to do anything on a retail level from a legal point of view, that particularly here in Australia, that I did start off as a trading company and doing it with crypto. I wanted to do it in that micro dollar thing for people to be involved, but it's such a big subject just to get people interested, to then get them buying and then get them doing. It was like, forget it. I'll just deal with B2B.
What can you say? Give people your final thoughts as we go out. Tell them where they can find out more about you and your company and where they can order the book.
Okay, so there's two things I'm going to tell you. Again, if you're just interested in the book, go to my website. If you're interested, at samjewel.com. If you're interested in knowing more about carbon credits and advisory, whether you're a farmer or you're like someone doing your ESG reporting and you won't have to buy some credits to offset what your ESG is. And I don't know how that landscape's going to be under Trump saying it doesn't exist anymore in America, but certainly here in Australia and a lot of countries around the world. In January 1 in Australia, we have ESG laws coming in, making it compulsory, which will affect everybody and their supply chains. I know the UAE went ESG compulsory on the 1st of July, and they're all scrambling to do their footprints. I believe it's already in America at the very big business. If you've got 30,000 staff or something, I think they have to have ESG reporting. I'm not up with where the law is over there, but certainly I have been reaching out to American CFOs and saying, when you get stuck and you've done all the reduction you can do and you need to do something to show that you're actually trying to offset your emissions, please come and talk to us, because we've got very good quality emissions to buy.
Buy those quality emissions. They mix great with your coffee. Just put a little bit in there. Gives that sweet carbon taste that drink is now.
Eat some dirt. No.
Eat some dirt, which is usually what I'm stating to most of my enemies. So thank you very much for coming on the show. We got your .com in there, didn't we, Samantha?
Yep, samjewel.com, and my company, earth.io, URTH.io, for the advisory stuff.
All right.
And, love to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Samantha, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for tuning in as well to our audience. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. Chris Voss, one of the TikTokity and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. And that should happen.